He has $809 billion and he almost died broke. Picture this. It's 2008, the economy is collapsing. Lehman Brothers just fell. The world is in free fall. And somewhere in California, there is a man who has just watched his rockets blow up for the third time. His rocket company is out of money, his car company is nearly bankrupt, he's going through a brutal divorce, and his personal fortune, every last dollar, is almost gone. Most people would have stopped. He didn't even consider it. This is the story of Elon Musk. But not the Elon Musk you think you know, not the Twitter feud, not the memes, not the political noise. This is the story of how a bullied, lonely kid from South Africa, a kid who slept on a futon in his own office because he couldn't afford an apartment, became the single wealthiest human being who has ever walked this planet. $809 billion. That number almost doesn't mean anything anymore. So let me help you feel it. If you spend $1 million every single day, it will take you over 2,000 years to spend what Elon Musk is worth right now. And none of it was supposed to happen. Let's go back to the beginning, all the way back. Pretoria, South Africa, 1971. A baby boy is born to Errol and Maya Musk. On the surface, it looks like a comfortable, privileged life. His father is a wealthy engineer, his mother is a model and dietitian. They live well. But underneath, the house is not a happy one. His parents divorce when Elon is 10 years old, and something happens after that divorce. Something that marks him for life. He chooses to live with his father, Errol. A decision he will later call one of the biggest mistakes he has ever made. He has described his father in interviews as, quote, a dreadful human being. He has never gone into full detail, but you can hear the weight of it every time he speaks about his childhood. So there is the first thing to understand about Elon Musk. He was not raised in warmth. He was raised in a quiet kind of hardness. And then school made it worse. He was small, introverted, obsessively in his own head. He read encyclopedias cover to cover, not for school, just because he wanted to. He was so lost in thought so often that his parents genuinely thought he had a hearing problem. They took him to doctors. The doctors tested him. There was nothing wrong with his hearing. He just wasn't listening to the world around him. He was listening to the one inside his head. His classmates sensed that he was different, and they made him pay for it. The bullying was severe. We are not talking about name-calling. At one point, a group of boys cornered him, threw him down a flight of concrete stairs, and beat him until he was hospitalized. He missed school for days, recovered, and then went back, and it happened again and again. This went on for years. He has since revealed publicly on his live television, hosting Saturday Night Live in 2021, that he has Asperger syndrome, that the social world never came naturally to him, that reading a room, picking up cues, understanding unspoken signals, none of that was intuitive. And when you're a child who cannot read those signals, in a school of children who can, you become a target. But here's what the bullies didn't see, what nobody saw. Behind those eyes was a machine running at full speed. By age 10, Elon had taught himself how to code, not from a class, not from a teacher, from a manual. By age 12, he had written the source code for a fully functioning video game. He called it Blaster, a space shooter. He submitted it to a South African computer magazine. They published it and they paid him $500. $500 at age 12. That was the first time Elon Musk sold something he built. It would not be the last. Fast forward to 1988. He's 17 and he makes a decision that changes everything. He leaves. Officially, he leaves to avoid the mandatory military service that South Africa required of young men. Unofficially, he leaves because South Africa is too small for what is building inside him. He has been reading, he has been thinking, and he has become convinced, utterly, completely convinced that the future is going to be built in America. He gets to Canada first through his mother's citizenship, enrolls at Queen's University, works odd jobs, a summer internship at a bank. the only real conventional job he will ever have. And then in 1992, he transfers to the University of Pennsylvania, and something unlocks. He earns not one degree but two, physics and economics. He is bridging both sides of his brain simultaneously, the scientist and the businessman fusing into one. And then Stanford comes calling, a PhD program in applied energy physics, one of the most prestigious in the world. He gets in, he packs his bag, he moves to California in 1995. He lasts 2 days, just 2 days, because he looks around Silicon Valley and he sees something electric happening. The internet, this wild, chaotic, world-changing thing is just getting started. And he knows, the way he has always known things, that he cannot be on the sidelines for this. He walks away from Stanford. He calls his brother Kimball and he says, "We are starting a company." The company is called Zip2. It's simple, an online city guide, maps, and business directories for newspaper going digital. They land contracts with New York Times, the Chicago Tribune. It sounds glamorous. It was anything but. Elon and Kimball are working out of a tiny rented office. They cannot afford an apartment, so Elon sleeps on a futon in his office. He showers at the YMCA down the street because it's cheaper than paying for a place with a bathroom. He eats cheap food, he's laser focused, obsessive, barely sleeping. This man at 24 years old is building something with everything he has. 4 years later in 1999, Compaq buys Zip2 for $307 million. Elon's personal cut, $22 million. $22 million at 27 years old. Most people would retire, buy a house, relax, take a breath. Not him. He wires most of it into his next company within weeks. X.com, an online financial services company. The idea is radical for 1999, moving real money through the internet. People think he's crazy. The bank establishment think he's dangerous. His early investors are nervous, but Musk sees everything nobody else does. X.com merges with a competitor called Confinity, run by a young Peter Thiel. And in 2002, eBay buys it $1.5 billion. Elon's payout, $165 million. He is 31 years old. He has just made more money than most people could spend in 100 lifetimes. The story should end here. The comfortable life awaits. But then, he does something that shocks everyone who knows him. Something that, to this day, is still hard to fully comprehend. He takes nearly every dollar and he bets it all on rockets and electric cars. Everyone thought he had lost his mind. Let's be honest about what 2002 looked like. Electric cars were jokes. Slow, ugly, short-range things that nobody wanted. The car industry hadn't been disrupted in a century. And rockets, private rockets, that was NASA's job. Governments built rockets, not tech guys with paper money. But Musk had been reading again, always reading. He had become obsessive with the idea that humanity needed to become multiplanetary. That if Earth ever faced a catastrophic event, an asteroid, a pandemic, a war, civilization itself could end. And the only insurance policy against extinction was getting humans to Mars. He researched buying a rocket from Russia, flew to Moscow, sat across from Russian rocket engineers who laughed at him, called him a naive American, sent him home with nothing. He flew back across the Atlantic furious. And somewhere over the ocean, he pulled out a spreadsheet and he started calculating the cost of building a rocket from scratch. He landed, he called his team, he said, "We are building the rocket ourselves." Space Exploration Technologies, SpaceX, founded 2002. He invests $100 million of his own money. At the same time, in 2004, he discovers a small electric car startup called Tesla Motors, founded by two engineers, Martin Eberhard and Mark Tepanin. He puts in $6.5 million, becomes chairman, and starts reshaping it in his image. He is simultaneously trying to disrupt the entire automotive industry and the entire space industry with his personal money, while the clock is ticking. And it all starts falling apart. 2008. This is the year that breaks most people. SpaceX has now attempted three launches of its Falcon 1 rockets. Three! And all three have exploded. Millions of dollars vaporized, literally. The company has enough funding for exactly one more launch attempt. One more. If that rocket fails, SpaceX is done. It ceases to exist. Meanwhile, Tesla is hemorrhaging cash. The Roadster, their first car, is plagued with production problems. Costs have doubled, investors are furious, the company is on the verge of bankruptcy. Musk has to negotiate a financing deal on Christmas Eve to keep Tesla alive. And personally, his marriage to his first wife, Justin Wilson, is collapsing. They had lost their first son, Nevada, to SIDS as an infant, a grief that broke something deep in both of them. The marriage couldn't survive the years that followed. He's losing his company, he's nearly losing another company, his marriage is ending, his fortune is almost gone. He has since admitted that during this period, he was borrowing money from friends to pay his personal rent. The man worth $800 billion was borrowing money for rent. In an interview years later, he said this, "I thought we had maybe a 10% chance of making it. Any given moment, everything could have failed." And then on September 28, 2008, the fourth Falcon 1 launches. It clears the launch pad. It clears the atmosphere. It reaches orbit. The control room erupts. Engineers are crying. Musk is crying. It is the first privately funded liquid-fueled rocket in history to reach orbit, and it saves SpaceX. Within months, NASA awards them a $1.6 billion contract. The darkest moments and then the light. What happens next is the kind of story that sounds made up. Tesla survives. The Model S launches in 2012 and becomes a sensation. Car critics call it the greatest car they've ever tested. It doesn't just win electric car awards, it wins all car awards. The auto industry, which has been doing the same thing for 100 years, starts to panic. SpaceX keeps going, the Falcon 9 launches. Then something that the aerospace world said was physically impossible happens. SpaceX lands a rocket. They launch it into space and they bring it back to Earth, landing it upright on a drone ship in the middle of the ocean. And then they reuse it. And then they do it again and again and again. And they have now cut the cost of getting to space by over 90%. 90%. In an industry that hadn't moved on price in decades. The Model 3 launches in 2017 and becomes the best-selling electric car of all time. Not the best-selling EV, the best-selling car, period. Tesla goes from nearly dead to the most valuable car company on earth. And Musk, his wealth doesn't just grow, it explodes. It becomes something the world has no real language for. In 2021, he becomes the first person in history to reach a net worth of $300 billion. In 2024, he hits $400 billion. In October 2025, $500 billion. December 2025, $600 billion. Then $700 billion. Then in February 2026, $800 billion. No single human being recorded in history has ever been this wealthy. Not Rockefeller, not Carnegie, not Gates, not Bezos, nobody. And the number is still climbing. Because there's what most people miss about Elon Musk. The wealth is not the point, it is a consequence. What drives him is something harder to understand. It is almost irrational certainty that the problems he has identified, energy dependence, the vulnerability of civilization, the limits of human consciousness, can be solved, must be solved, and that if he doesn't work on them at full speed, nobody will. He co-founded Neuralink in 2016 to build chips that go inside the human brain, to treat paralysis, restore communication, and eventually to let humans keep pace with artificial intelligence. The FDA approved human trials in 2023. The first patients are already being implanted. He built the Boring Company to solve traffic by putting cars underground. He founded XAI in 2023 to build artificial intelligence that can help humanity rather than destroy it. A direct challenge to OpenAI, the company he helped found, and then walked away from when he had believed it had lost its way. And in 2022, he did the most audacious and polarizing thing he had done in years. He bought Twitter. $44 billion walked in on the first day, carrying a kitchen sink, literally, as a joke. fired 75% of the staff, ripped apart the business model, renamed it X, and declared that he was building the world's free speech platform. Love it or hate it, you could not ignore it. And now, in 2026, the story keeps moving. It never stops. He led the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, in the United States federal government, spending cuts across more than 30 agencies. 149,000 government jobs eliminated or bought out. Billions saved, depending on who you ask. Controversy, depending on who you ask. He stepped down from DOGE in May 2025, but the impact of his presence in government is still being debated in Congress, in OPEDS, in living rooms across America. He is currently on trial, testifying in a lawsuit against his old partners at OpenAI. The battle over the future of artificial intelligence, who controls it, who profits from it, whether it serves humanity or corporations, is playing out in his San Francisco courtroom, and Elon Musk is one of the central figures. His company, SpaceX, is the most valuable private company in the world, over $350 billion. It carries astronauts to the International Space Station. It provides battlefield internet to Ukraine. It has launched thousands of satellites that gives broadband to the most remote corners of Earth. And somewhere in South Texas, the largest rocket ever built by human hands, Starship, is being tested. Its destination, if Musk gets his way, is Mars. So what do you do with all of this? How do you hold the full picture of a man who is this contradictory, who is both a visionary and a destroyer, who builds things that seems impossible and says things that seems reckless, who has 12 children and describes himself as cash poor, who was beaten up in a school and now controls technologies that shape the world? Here is the thing. You don't have to admire everything about him to recognize what he represents. He represents a kind of extreme possibility. The idea that obsession, combined with capital, combined with a genuine willingness to lose everything, can bend the arc of civilization, for better or for worse. When he was sleeping on that futon in 1995, running cold at 2 a.m., showering at the YMCA, he was not doing it for money. He had no money. He did it because he could not stop. Because the ideas would not leave him alone. Because something inside him was incapable of accepting the world as it was, when he could see what it could be. That is the part of the story that matters most, not the billions, the futon. Because anyone can dream about changing the world when they already have everything. The real question, the one that separates people like Elon Musk from the rest of us, is what you are willing to risk when you have nothing left to lose, and what you are willing to risk when you have everything. It turns out for him the answer is the same: everything. If you like videos like this and you want to keep seeing this video, please like, comment and subscribe. Thank you.